Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humble to be joined by the spiritual accountant, Abbey Rose. Abby's
Hello.
had an incredible story of an awakening. I'll let her tell the story, but a little bit about Abby. She was an accountant. Now she's the spiritual accountant. I'm looking forward to reading more about, or not reading, listening to more about the transformation from the system accountant to the spiritual holistic accountant. So Abby has an awesome story. I've heard a little bit about it. I read about it about an hour ago, but I want to hear it straight from Abby herself. So Abby, welcome to my show today. Very grateful to have you here. You got lots to share and lots to help people with in terms of the financial system and how they can self-govern, which we were talking about before. So, not going to edit that bit out. Welcome, Abby. Grateful to have you here.
Thanks, Nathan. I really appreciate it. And yeah, like many people, there's been a huge awakening experience over the last, 5 to 7 years. And I definitely was caught up in that. But yeah, I started out in accounting when I was 19. And like I mentioned previously in our prior chats, innocently indoctrinated, right? So
Yeah.
I started with a diploma, went on to my degree, went on to postgrad, and I was working towards my tax agent license and my BAS agent. And yeah, started in my own business in 2008. I left cubicle life. It wasn't really for me. I wanted to be helping people. Yeah, I wanted to be assisting businesses in their financial decisions before the fact, not after. And yeah, so I built up my bookkeeping business into an accounting practice and then thought I had made it.
Yeah.
I thought I was successful. I was successful to a point, and what I knew was success then. Until I had my awakening in 2018. I went through a bit of tragedy and a bit of loss, and as a result, I lost all of my income streams, my revenue. And because of this, I then was facing bankruptcy. Um, but if you're an accountant and you file for bankruptcy, they actually strip you of all your licenses and registrations. You can't practice. So I was faced with this decision and I didn't know, I felt what I needed to do. And even though my family really pleaded with me because I'd worked so hard for my career, like, don't do it, don't do it. This is everything that you've been working towards. I decided to pull the pin. Yeah. And instead of filing or like getting someone else to file the bankruptcy, I thought, oh, I'm an accountant. I'm smart enough. How hard can these forms be? I can do it.
Mm.
And when I was going through that process of bankruptcy, I was reading what was actually happening. And my brain just started to tick over. And I was like, bankruptcy, bankruptcy. Hang on a second. They're removing me as trustee. Trustee. What? That means there's some kind of trust involved.
Mm.
And then that's when I started my research and I learned about the strawman theory. And then that uncovered a whole massive can of worms. And I went deeper and learned how the birth certificate is a financial instrument and it's used for commerce and the public sector and the private sector and not-for-profits and foundations and like all the things,
Mm.
right? So I went on a huge, massive journey. And then um yeah, we've kind of landed in this really beautiful place where, as I mentioned previously, I felt like looking back now, I see how in my early career, I was probably contributing to a lot of people's pain. I was responsible for filing taxes and keeping people bound in their obligations. And I wasn't the favorite person for people to see. I wanted them to experience me in a great way and have a good feeling about their finances. But let's face it, anytime someone goes to the accountant, there's just dread.
Yeah.
Like it's just dread. And if it's not fear of the unknown or what's coming, it's like shame around how you're managing and what you're doing. And there's just so much turmoil in this space. Like so many families I would see um, pay the ATO before they feed their family. The amount of stress and pressure it puts on people when they just accumulate all these debt obligations. And I guess in learning the truth of our economy, the truth of the financial system, how it's run, how it's operate, what's actually happening at higher levels, I feel like I actually get to be the person that helps people now. I get to help them mitigate debt obligations. I help them get to decide what they want to do, where they want to sit, how they want to create sustenance for themselves, and to what impact they want to have in the communities. Because let's face it, tax doesn't pay for anything in our communities. It's pure profit.
Mm,
It's the biggest fraud in the history of mankind. And I'm here to completely bust it and debunk it
love it.
and take it down. So, yeah, it comes with a bit of a big mission and requires a lot of stamina and and persistence. But yeah, we are really working towards creating an economy that is sustainable and fulfilling and collaborative and contributing to our future generations. And the more we focus on that and what we want to create, and the less we focus on what's broken, I feel like the more hope we have in that space. So yeah, it's my pleasure and it's my honor. And I also feel like it's a bit of my duty because of where I come from. So yeah, just taking it day by day,
Yeah,
case by
love it.
case, straw man by straw man.
So yeah, well, back to the straw man. So for someone that's watching and listening, they're probably asking themselves, what's the straw man? So you want to give my listeners and viewers a rundown of what this straw man is all
Oh
about?
yeah, this is
Yeah.
it's a huge concept, and it probably formulates a lot of the foundation of what we're actually dealing with here. Um, but in really simple terms, it all started from birth, and it was when, at birth we were taken and we were filed into a system, into paperwork,
Literally.
and that paperwork filing, that registration of the birth, that actually creates a commercial instrument. So your birth certificate is a representation of a commercial instrument, and that commercial instrument is used. This is where we see the name written in all caps. It's the representation of a trust. And it's a legal identity, your legal identity. And a lot of people are confused because they think that this commercial instrument, this legal identity, is the representation of you.
Mm,
And it's just not. It's purely commercial. It's for profit. It's profiting off human activity. And it's like, well, where do the profits come from? Yeah, this is where you kind of learn that your straw man is your asset. It's not something that we reject or we push away, but it's something that we actually embrace and we learn. So with that, there's a value in the trust. Yeah, there's a natural credit that you inherit at birth, and it accumulates over time. And this is where, the economy is created. Currency is actually infinite. It's never ending.
mm,
It's just in the hands of people who are controlling it. And when we look at it, it's like, well, our whole economy is created, in the banking sector by fractional reserve. Um, and fractional banking. And it's where currency is created, backed by our state, our trust. And then the banks will then lend out that money and create more. And then we pay the taxes and it creates more. And this is how the markets and CPI just goes up, 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 up. Currency just goes up, 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 up. It never, never, never stops. It keeps going. right? Just go backwards. You know, you look at the Australian national debt clock, and there's only one way that figure goes, and it's up. And what that figure represents is the currency that is created, backed by our commercial instruments, right? So we're creating the currency, and then the more taxes we pay, the more currency we create, right? The more loans we take out, the more debt is created. So that Australian national debt clock, it's not your debt, right? So if we were to replace the word Australian and put Donut King, it's the Donut King debt clock, right? So if Australia was a franchise and it was called Donut King, this is the amount of debt that Donut King is raising to function our economy, right? So it's not actually our debt. We're the ones lending, right? So it's the public borrowing from the private. And when you can understand these concepts, you know, at a high level, but also at a deeper level, and learn that this commercial instrument is probably one of the most powerful things in your financial life, this is where you can take ownership and control over it. And then you can make decisions of what you choose to do with this commercial instrument. So this is what I help people with. It's the education around that, and then helping people choose what they wish to do. You know, I don't tell anyone what to do. I give you the options. This is public, this is private, this is debt, this is credit. You know, this, you're learning this so you can understand these decisions for yourself, right? I'm not making these decisions for you. And then, you know, when I say to people, you know, had you have known the truth about how this system operates and how this currency is created and what's happening with the tax returns, had you have known that in the beginning, full disclosure around it, would you have signed up? And 10 out of 10 times, right? 10 out of 10 times people say no. I was even in a room full of, you know, 5,000 people, and somehow I got chosen to make a statement, and I did. And it was like, yeah, I could talk about how you can legally, lawfully exit tax. And then the presenter asked, you know, shit, who'd want to hear about that? Who'd want to listen to that webinar? Every single person in that room raised their hands. I literally had chills through my whole body.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah. And, you know, with that, you know, it is something that people want to address, because we're getting to a point where people are feeling the pinch. You know, we're
Yes.
feeling the bubble. You know, we're getting taxed more. There's more penalties, more fees, more charges, more levies, more licenses. New South Wales just passed some laws and have backdated land tax for all these people. People are getting tens of thousands of dollars of land tax notices now because they've backdated these policies. These policies are getting passed in the private overnight. It's like Donut King is making these decisions on how the company is going to operate, and they're passing these policies overnight while we sleep, and we as the citizens, as the members of Donut King, have to abide by those policies. We've got no choice, right? So it's learning about, you know, how we opt in and then how we opt out.
And I love learning about how to opt out.
Oh, you and me both. I love talking about learning how to opt out, right? Because going from compliant to non-compliant, it's not an overnight journey.
No.
It's not like you stumble across this information and then literally next week you're private. You're out.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately it's a journey, it's a road. It's an evolution. It's an awakening in and of itself. So I can also see that in my awakening, you know, I went down the road much like yourself, doing all the modalities, and I got shamanic practitioner and the Reiki master, and I did the NLP and hypnosis and all the things. And I can see now how, I didn't do those things so I could go and teach people how to be a Reiki master, but I actually learned those things so that I could navigate these systems and processes on a very holistic level. So helping people exit tangibly, physically in the real world, but then also incorporating the emotional support and the energetic support to do that.
That's powerful work that you do. I truly, it's awesome. It really is. And hearing you say that, I feel that energy too. Like I feel how powerful that just was. Anyone listening out there, feel free to contact Abbey Rose. Speaking of that, Abby, yeah, because we've all dabbled. Like when you go on that journey, you all dabble in those modalities, and it's like, well, what do I do with this information or this knowledge or this energetic
Yeah.
remembering that? I feel like we've all done this before,
Mm.
relearning of this stuff, and it's like, well, how can we empower others? But obviously, you did the same thing. You went and learnt, did this all on yourself first, and then you went, all right, how can I start being of service to others? How was
Yeah.
that journey from doing all that? I call it the dark night of the soul,
Yep.
work, shadow work on
Yep.
yourself. Like, how was that
Yep.
journey? Because that journey very rarely gets spoken about on sort of these platforms. And I sort of asked my guests, like, how was that shadow dark night of the soul journey for you? Because obviously did you actually end up filing that bankruptcy? Sounds
Yeah.
like that was probably the catalyst for the dark night of the soul journey. So how was that journey for you?
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
transition
Yeah.
period, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a huge transition. And that was like ego death after ego
Yep.
death. Like the accountant in me had to die 1,000 deaths, And
Yep.
even then, it's a constant evolution. I don't think I'm at a point where I can say, yeah, made it. Like I'm here. Well, I am here. I'm also very much having a human experience, and I very much am confronted with my own fears and worries and shadows. I think that's a constant journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do get faced with quite a lot. I feel like I do get initiated into certain experiences because I am, paving the way for other people. And I guess this is where, I hold so much compassion for where people are at because I was there. If
Mm.
anything, I was worse. I was the one pressing the lodge button and enforcing it, right? So now that I'm on the other side of it, and mostly I feel like most of the shadows have been brought to the light. Um, I can confidently say that, um, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like if I
Yeah, I
had to
love
go
that.
through that again and again and again, I would do it. I would do it
Mm.
every time without fail. So, this is why I love supporting people in that. And I have, containers and programs to do that. But also too, I am confronted with the darkness. And I do have my own limitations. And as long as I stay true to the mission and true to what I feel like I'm here to do, I might fuck it up. I might get it wrong. But I think I've ironed out a lot of creases and I've plugged a lot of leaks. So the fortification around me is strong,
Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's like we all walk that hero's journey, don't we? And we all have that intuition inside that's sort of nudging us in that direction. But I guess it's just the massive overhaul of everything. Like you strip everything back. And I feel like we lose everything. Well, we feel like we've lost everything. We haven't really lost anything. It's all within us anyway. But we feel like we've lost everything to then gain everything. Like we're starting to remember who and what we're here to do and who and what we are. And yeah,
And
it's a
that's the
beautiful
magic
journey.
of it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the and this is where we sit in the seat of safety, right? A lot of people in the space have a lot of fear and uncertainty, and it's that remembrance of your divine creation. I say that there's two very important days of your life: the day that you were born which is when all of this shit, starts from. But then the second most important day of your life is the day that you find out the reason why.
Oh,
And so when we're exiting, these systems and trying to create a new, we're leaning into our why. Why are you here? What is your contribution to humanity? What is the impact that you want to leave behind? Right. And this is the safety that we sit in here because we all genuinely want this for everyone. We want it for our next generation. We want education to be improved. We want healthcare to be improved. We want cures for cancer. We want this and that, these things. And so when we lean or I guess when we lead our journey, our financial journey from that place, it makes the ride a bit more easier to navigate because like I'll be the first one to admit there's times that I want to pack it in and I'm like, it's too fucking hard. I can't do it.
been
Like,
there.
I'll have people coming at me or I'll have haters sending me death threats or, all sorts of things going on and, nasty rumors being spread about. And I really have to anchor in to my why and my legacy and what I'm here to actually create. And when I let go of the noise and sit in that space, I find so much power in it because it is that remembrance of, why we're here and what we're doing. And it's that vision of that future life, of that future world that we want to create. And as long as I stay true to that, I can never get it wrong.
That's so powerful. I could literally just hit stop record right there. It's literally, yeah, it's just a beautiful thing to say. And it's so true, especially for everyone out there. And I find that in the circles I'm in now and from where I was to where I am now, I'm seeing that people are really struggling to even sit in that space because of everything that's going on around them in terms of TV, all these influences. Like I say the TV, but there's so many more video games and all these things
Consumption.
that impact our self-sabotage, which is what I do. I help people overcome that. It's like, it's finding that solitude and that just that stillness to sit with yourself and really ask those questions. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that these things are here to distract us from ever going to that place. Because if we all went to that place, this whole thing changes. Do you,
Yep.
yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
hands down,
Yeah.
right? It starts within, right?
Mm.
And people have lost their connection to self.
And nature.
And yeah, yeah. And there's overconsumption and people's environments are not, conducive to health and well-being and we get lost. Yeah.
Mm.
So, it is a process of finding oneself and the truth, it's ultimate truth. And that's universal truth. And I call that, universal truth and the laws of cosmic currency.
Yep.
But then truth, self-truth, truth of who you are and why you're here and what is true for you. And you have a lot of, I guess, manifestation coaches and say, oh, you just got to be in a high vibration, just vibe
Oh
high.
yeah.
It's all love, love and
Well
light,
said.
light. And I'm like, well, you know what? I actually believe that truth is the highest vibration. And when you're in the truth of who you are, the truth of your soul, the truth of what you want to do and create in the world, you are going to be emitting a frequency that no one can fuck with. Right. And this then
I
just
agree with that.
attracts more of the same, right? This is finding your truth. What is that?
And if someone's just starting the journey, Abby, how does one begin to find that? Because it's different for everyone. And I ask that question to all my guests, and I get a different answer every time. So, Abby, how does
Yeah.
one, in your perception, or not in perception, how does one find that within themselves to
Find truth.
start that journey? Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
Yeah, it is a
I
good
think it's a
question.
I think it's a process, right? And it comes with questions. You know,
Hmm.
I usually find the ability to ask yourself questions to peel back your layers because, we ask questions, but half the time we're answering them from the mind or from, a very superficial place or what we think we should say or how we think we should act that's socially acceptable. And sometimes it's you have to really ask some bigger questions to get to the core of who you are. So this is where I think going on that self-discovery journey is really important for people because the system actually profits of you off of sorry the system actually profits off of you not knowing who the fuck you are, because when you're confused and you don't know who you are and you don't know what you're meant to be doing and you don't know how you want to live your life and you don't know what your goals are and you don't know what your aspirations are and you don't know who your family is, and when you don't know what your values are, how can you ever uphold them? So these environments are created to keep us confused and stuck and compliant. So when you can create the space to go on that journey of self-discovery and really uncover some truths for yourself, some of those truths may be hard to swallow, but it's worth it because the more you understand yourself on a deeper level and the more connected you are to your soul's truest essence, the easier it is going to be for you to show up in your everyday to day and be a beacon of light for other people to then do the same.
100%. That's well said. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
That's really good.
Get
And
it
everything
up
you
myself.
said, I've
Great.
just
That's a great question.
it was, yeah. I asked that
Just
to all my
just
guests.
divinely channeled for you and your audience.
Yeah. Wow. It's a
Like,
question that I asked in
yeah.
my very first podcast.
Yeah.
Now we're up to like nearly 100. So it's a question that's held me in good
Wow.
stead, you could say, Abby. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been a journey for all of us, really. And it's interesting that a lot of people started theirs in 2020. It's interesting yours started a couple of years prior.
Yeah. I think it was preparing me for 2020,
Yeah.
right? So I had to do the research and the education so that when COVID hit, I had answers for people,
Yeah. The
right?
soul was just
Because
like,
yeah, so it was like I had to go through my own complete destruction. And I remember in the height of all of that, I was like a ball of a mess on the kitchen floor. And my son was one, my daughter was two, and I felt like, life was just over as I knew it. And I remember just so clear as day, like I just that glimmer of hope of you'll never be here ever again.
hmm. I just got
And
to
I
pause
guess,
the recording. I've got the postie
yeah.
here.
Oh, sure.
One.
Yeah, so I guess it was that glimmer of hope of like me knowing that I would never be there again. And yeah, I just had to go through the motions of that. But yeah, when 2020 hit, I was still running a public practice, but I was doing my research on the side. And I can hands down guarantee and assure you that the result of what happened back then was the catalyst for a lot of people waking up and just going, hang on a second, our government doesn't care for us, and there's got to be another way. And there's a lot of people that are still in fear around whether or not something like that would ever happen again. I was having this discussion and the other day, and I was just like, do you know what? I actually genuinely believe that enough people woke up during that they could never do that again.
I
You know,
agree.
and this is where, that exit strategy, moving into your own self-governing state in the event of something like that happening again, if you're in your own self-governing state, it can't happen.
No,
It can't happen.
no,
So
100%.
yeah, big times that was, but I hate to say it, but I'm glad it happened because I think we will reap the benefit for it moving forward.
Yeah. Given you're in the financial, wow. natural financial holistic world, and you're sort of
Mhm.
learn a bit about the system. A lot of truthers and people are talking about a collapse, right? I
Yep.
believe it may happen, it may not. Like when I
Yeah.
first started the journey, I was like, please happen. Like we get our freedoms back and all these things. It's like, well, we can get our freedoms back without the system collapsing. But how do you see, maybe a crystal ball question for you,
Yep.
how do you see
Yep.
this playing out in the next, I don't know,
Yep.
10 years maybe? Like,
Yep.
will there be a collapse for those that are
Okay.
still hanging on to the fact there might be one?
Yeah, great question. I feel like there's a point. I feel like we're in a bubble or we're in a pressure cooker, and
Mm,
there's going to be a point where there is some level of collapse.
yeah,
Um,
I
you know,
feel that.
the banks have to collapse. The way our economy is functioning, it can't continue. People, there's going to be a point where something does happen. What that is, I don't know. Um, but all I really focus on is like there's so many different rabbit holes we could go down, but
Yeah,
I kind of attach to that currency, right? Cosmic currency,
yeah, 100%.
universal laws, knowing that currency is infinite as well, knowing that we are the asset, and believing, truly, truly, wholeheartedly believing that an advanced civilization doesn't require currency. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know how we would function without currency. I have done a lot of research into the Ubuntu as well. Um, it's possible, and I hold that vision. I hold that vision of what does a world look like where there is complete equality, everyone's needs are totally met, where collaborative, there is no segregation, no crime. It's peace on earth. It's heaven on earth.
Yeah.
It's crazy, I do get called crazy for thinking these things
No,
or
I think
visioning
about it
these
too.
things. But yeah, this is how I see,
I
going
see
back
us
to the
doing that
community and
eventually. We have
yeah,
barter exchanges, like you're a
yeah,
financial, spiritual accountant. So it's like, well, I might grow my own food outside. So I'll give you a dozen eggs or a couple of zucchinis.
yeah.
Like we can,
Resources. This
yeah,
is
it
it,
goes
right?
back to that.
Yeah,
Used to do
right.
that.
And this is
Yeah.
where let's put in a little bit of safety and certainty for people, right? In the event the sky falls, the world turns to shit, right?
Again.
What's going to be valuable? What is going to be valuable? I'll tell you.
Uh,
Resources. Resources is what's going to be value. You can have your cupboard full of gold and silver, but people aren't going to give a flying fuck about that. They want resources. They're going to want fuel. They're going to want food. They're going to want shelter, right? So this is where we want to step up and into being resourceful, right? So this is where I've got a lot of people setting up, communities and farms and collaborative sharing and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But
like what
you
I
know,
want to do.
yeah, it's
Interesting
just
you say
it's
that.
yeah, it's like we all start working together, and we don't need mass consumption where everyone has a mower. There could be a community mower that gets shared. Not everyone needs a boat. There could be a community boat that
Yeah, I
gets
agree with that.
right? And I get called crazy for thinking of it, but someone's got to hold the vision. It might not happen in my lifetime, but at least if I hold the vision, it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, and I think, I hold the same vision because it's what I was telling you about off air, what I want to build with the people I'm in with my circles, and what we want to do. It's the same thing, right? It's a community thing.
Yes.
It's for the ones that system's been stripped back, we can build a new one. I feel we are here to build something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or whether
Yeah.
we're just showing the door for our future generations to then
Love it.
make it happen. It's like we're doing something along those lines, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I'm in full support for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of us that are. Abby, though, is there anything else that you're willing to share today? I did have a few questions, but I think I've asked them all and you've covered everything anyway. Is there anything else
Oh,
you're
awesome.
willing to share with my listeners and viewers today?
Um, Yeah, I mean, like, I'm really grateful for you connecting with me and bringing me onto your podcast. I could talk about this stuff for days
Not the
and
only
still
one.
not be done. But yeah, if anyone wants to follow me, you can
Oh
find
yeah.
me on Instagram at the Spiritual Accountant. I also have a private Facebook group called Untethered. It's got a purple banner, so you can search for me there.
I might jump
Um,
in that myself.
yeah, jump into my group. I share a lot
Yep.
of information in there. I also do
Yep.
webinars and yeah, provide that journey for people. And I also like helping people uncover their soul mission and their soul purpose and turn that into something revenue producing. So yeah, I've got a lot of things going on, but I think it's all working towards the common good for all. And yeah, I'm just delighted to share my journey, my experience, my magic with you and your listeners.
That's
Thanks.
awesome. It's a younger audience, so this information is quite powerful for our younger
Yes.
generation. They
Oh,
need to
that's what
learn
I'm here
this.
for. Yeah, right. Because some of these kids, they're not even in the tax system yet. So if we can get to them before they sign up, it's
This is the
gonna
reason
be
why I reached out to you last week, Abby.
thank you. Oh, amen for that. Man, I remember exactly, right? I remember I remember exactly where I was when I was what, like 13 or 14, and they handed me that tax declaration form and said, you need this.
Yeah, I remember that too,
And
actually.
yeah, right. Fuck that. Like my dream would to be like to go into schools and just say, fuck that. Like, this is what we're gonna do.
That's my dream.
Yeah.
It's my dream to go in there and politely say that to empower people out of there. That's sort of my dream. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Um,
sort of saying that without saying it. It's to empower them with the fuck that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly. There's
Yeah.
another way.
There is. There always is. And they give you one way, you know. We were of the same. How old are you?
I'm 36.
Yeah, so you're not too much older than me. So we were sort of programmed to be like, well, get a job,
Yeah.
get more debt, a house, debt, and all these things, car, debt, all these things.
Yep.
And we're programmed to build someone else's dream rather than build our
Yep.
own. We're writing resumes, going career expos. We don't have people like spiritual accountants come into schools and do talks. We don't have people
Okay.
that are entrepreneurs coming in and doing talks about how to start your own business. You just don't see it. You just don't have it. And that's the
Yeah.
system, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately. Let's
Yeah.
let's dismantle that.
Well, I think
I'm
it's
here
being
for it.
dismantled anyway, given.
Yeah.
And actually, there's one last topic of discussion just came then. It's like this whole hyperinflation thing. Where do you see that all going? I know a lot of people
Yeah.
are
So
in
the
that
rate of
cost of living fear
inflation,
crisis.
yeah, so the rate of inflation, like they say, what is it, like 3%? That's actually not true because they don't calculate food, transport, or property in
Ah,
inflation. So the actual real rate of inflation is more around, 13 to 15% per annum. So if you were going to have, say, $10,000 sitting in your bank account, in 12 months' time, you've got what, $8,750.
yeah.
So what we want to do is actually beat the rate of inflation. You want to be creating revenue that beats that, right? So we want to be investing into revenue producing activities, and that would be through business, property, or trading the stock markets. So, with each of those options comes learning, education, and what to do. But yeah, pretty much I feel like if we can get ahead of the game, this is where we're able to then use our financial freedom and our resources then to create the solutions that are going to help the economy.
Interesting. Because a lot of people are educating people to not go into the stock market given collapse. Are you the other way?
Look, I think it would be like huge to predict that kind of collapse.
That's
I
what
think.
people are putting out there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a expert on marking, like on the markets. I'm pretty solid in business. I think you can create more passive or non-active revenue in business a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Hmm.
But yeah, when it comes to trading in the stock markets, I wouldn't recommend anyone do that unless they're fully educated
Good
around the
call.
decisions. that they're making, and also have the emotional intelligence to do that. Otherwise, it's
Well,
just
yeah.
gambling, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I got to get going because I've got
Yep.
some client
Well,
meetings to
Abby,
get on.
thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on today. Thank you for giving your time to this podcast and for my
Thank
listeners and
you.
viewers.
Yeah.
You've already discussed where people can find you. So your website is
AbbeyRose.org. Yep, you can find me there.
awesome. Give Abby a follow. Thanks for jumping on today, Abby. You're an absolute legend, and I'm glad we were able to cross paths here. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks,
See you
Nathan.
guys. We'll talk soon.